Hi, my name is Erica Yamakuchi, and welcome to vlog number 9 for IAH 207. And today I'm going to start off by talking about the book Close to the Knives by David. I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name, so I'll just put it here. So I'd like to start off by discussing what I believe the genre of this book is. And I believe that it is a personal narrative type of book, kind of like autobiographical. And it kind of reminds me of Push in a way where it's a man like sharing his story, just like Precious was sharing her story. But the difference is that this is shared from the author's perspective, whereas Push was shared from Precious's perspective, not Sapphire's perspective. So as I started reading this book, it became very clear and very apparent right away that this was a narrative type of book because of how descriptive the author is with his words. But I will admit that it was a little hard to get into, but the more I read, probably up to page 40, it was hard to read. It gets easier now that I'm at page like 70. But I want to point out that page 6, I don't think has a single period in it. I don't think, so it's all one long run-on sentence, and that's how the first few pages are. They're really long run-on sentences, and that made the first few pages of the book really hard to read, so I'm glad that he started breaking it up more. But it also kind of gave a more in-depth, raw look into his thoughts and his feelings. So what first tipped me off to the fact that I think this book is a personal narrative and one that will have a point at the end of the story is this kind of formula that I noticed over and over again, and that formula was discuss an event or like tell an event in the story and then say how you felt about it. So for example, this happens right away in the beginning on page 11 when he takes a Black Beauty pill, and then he describes how he felt about the experience. He said, Then the sense of regret washes over me like when I drop something, a sudden regret at what might be the disappearance of regular perceptions. And he goes on to keep describing how he's feeling. But that pattern of something happening in the chain of events of the story and then describing how he personally reacted or felt to it goes on for the foreseeable future of this book. And I think that's one of the important reasons that this can be defined as a narrative, because he's sharing how he feels about the events that are happening. He's not just telling the story. So now I'd like to discuss the ACT UP documentary, which is called United in Anger. But before I do that, I kind of want to mention someone who's been mentioned in a bunch of the works and a bunch of the viewings and stuff, and who played a role in the AIDS epidemic. And that is Larry Kramer. And so I just kind of wanted to point out that he was actually why I took this class, because I got into The Normal Heart, and I have the play and I also have the DVD. And it was very interesting to learn through the readings and stuff that some of the stuff he did was kind of controversial, even to like the activism community, and not everyone agreed with him. So I thought that was really interesting to hear more about him, because reading his stuff was what got me to take this class. So as far as the documentary, something I really liked about it is the juxtaposition between clips of people speaking in the 80s and then them speaking about their experiences now, like right next to each other. For example, Anne Northrup, I believe is how you pronounce her name, there was many clips of her speaking to large crowds in the 80s and doing activism work, and then they show her now in the present day discussing her thoughts and her experiences and kind of how things have changed. And I really like the juxtaposition of those two things. And also, in addition to that, I really like the emphasis on the government's role in the AIDS epidemic, because before watching that video or the documentary, I didn't know about the FDA and the CDC's role in the whole epidemic. I just kind of thought about it from like the president's perspective, but I didn't think about it in the different departments and what they could be doing to like get drugs out to people faster, or like how even the definition of AIDS had to change to include women. So I thought that was also really interesting, and that's something I gained from the documentary, because while Push is a really interesting narrative, the government isn't really mentioned too much in Push, nor is it mentioned all that much in Angels in America. They touch on it here and there because of the lawyer thing, but they don't really like touch on it as much as they did in the documentary. Lastly, I appreciate the way that the documentary style of information contrasts the way that it is received with the TV show or reading a book. I really like that selection, and I think it was really impactful to see like actual clips and stuff, not just reading about it, but actually seeing like actual clips of demonstrations and people scattering ashes on the White House lawn and stuff. So I really liked how that selection was able to contrast the other ones. Thanks for watching. See you next time.